is. But anyway, they are going to present to us some great information about the music and how music is such a crucial part of the book of Revelation and how it informs also our worship. It pops up in all kinds of hymns that we have. But as you know, the book of Revelation begins with that statement from John who says, blessed are those who not only read aloud the scriptures, but also who hear them. That being said, I'm going to read from you chapter 5 in the book of Revelation, and there's some singing that goes on in here. I want you just to be attentive to that, and after we hear chapter 5, I will hand it over to Ernie and to Larry. So, here we are. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals." Then I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent out into all the earth. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's people. And they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth." And then I looked and heard the voice of many angels, numbering thousands upon thousands, and 10,000s times 10,000. They encircled the throne and the living creatures and the elders. In a loud voice they were saying, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise." Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea and all that is in them saying, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever." The 4 living creatures said, "Amen," and the elders fell down and worshiped. Singing praise and worship in the throne room of God with the angels and the elders tossing down their golden crowns. And if that doesn't ring a hymn in your heads, I'm sure Ernie and Larry will reference that. So, again, thank you so much for being here, for being part of this continuing investigation, exploration, and experience of this very, very, very powerful witness from the earliest days of our faith. A book that speaks not only of the praise and the worship, but reminds us that in the end, our faith, our dedication, our promise lies in the resurrected Jesus Christ and in God our Father, the one who is, who was, and is to come. Amen. Ernie and Larry.
I'll take this one. Oh, you got that one? All right. We're going to start with some music. Hopefully this will work out really well.
You're going to start with "Worthy is the Lamb."
Yes, I am. This is the final chorus, "Worthy is the Lamb" from Messiah. So I'm going to sort of turn this down a bit. So right from the beginning of this chorus, when we get to the end of Messiah, which is really, and Larry and I discuss this pretty regularly, it is a piece about the coming of the Messiah. It begins with the prophecy and the passion and death. And then we have this ending portion where this final chorus is. But there is only one teeny snippet of narrative in Handel's Messiah. And it is from Luke, and it takes place at the birth. And we have the angels coming to witness the birth. From there on, it is basically, one of my former professors referred to it as 18th century generalist thought, which I think was a way for him to describe it so he didn't have to explain anymore. Because we would all sit there and go, oh yeah, that's right, 18th century generalist course, sure we know what you're talking about. And we all left going, what was that, you know? So, but Messiah and this use of this text, there are two words that I want you to sort of latch on to. And the first one is worthy. The second one is lamb, because in Revelation, we have a lot of reference to the lamb and the Christ being represented by the lamb who was slain. In this case, we have a pretty big opening statement here. Worthy is the lamb that was slain. And when I was at Peabody, I had a professor who, and actually somebody who I studied with for a number of years, who always talked about the fact that there were only two places in Messiah where Revelation is the text that's used. The Hallelujah chorus and Worthy is the Lamb. Everything else is sort of this wild hodgepodge of 18th century generalist thought. When you figure out exactly what that means, please send me an email, and I'll be a little more intelligent sounding the next time. I'm going to skip forward into the next century. I'm going to try to catch this. I may not catch it, so give me a second. It's going to be like drop the needle. I'm going to do the Brahms. I'm going to do the sixth movement. Here, it's going to take me a second to find it. Okay.
While Ernie's looking for that, this is what's displayed here, the composing score for movement 7.
Yeah, we're only going to play a little bit of movement 6. Okay, just a little bit of this. What I want to show you is this. Brahms used the same translation of his text for his German Requiem, Ein Deutsches Requiem. He used the same source for the translation from Attic Greek or Aramaic or older languages into German, and he used the translation that was done by Martin Luther, as did Bach, and we'll see a little connection there, just to show you how close Bach and Brahms were. But I actually want to go back, and I want to start this text with Corinthians. I know we're not talking about Corinthians, but I want to start with a little bit of text, and you can hear the music. And we're singing about here, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is the victory? And we're singing, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. And then we get worthy. They're saying, death, where is your sting? Wo ist dein Sieg? And here is the answer to that question. Revelation. Lord, you are worthy to receive glory and honor and power. For you have created all things, and for your pleasure they all were created. So we get to the end, and part of my reason for playing this is, I don't know if any of you know this, and this is a little bit of a cheeky reference on my part, but lately I have been going back and looking at Terry Pratchett's book, Good Omens, and I happened to see the series, which I find hysterically funny, especially when we have the four horsemen of the apocalypse riding around on bougie motorcycles. It's actually, interesting, but they keep using the word ineffable, something that cannot be put into words. And here Brahms gets to the point musically where he's asking the question. He says, death, where is thy sting? O death, O grave, where is thy victory? And what he does is he answers with revelation. You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory. Revelation for a composer, in many ways, becomes a place where you're able to musically set the text so that you're answering questions that really defy a good answer. Let me play another Brahms example for you. I not only love this movement, I love this particular performance a lot. Hang on. This is 7. Do you see how the character of the music has changed all of a sudden? He marks this feierlich, solemn, slow, dignified, stately, with respect. And the text is, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from henceforth, yea, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works that follow them. At the very end of his Requiem, Brahms uses this text as a way to comfort. And at the very beginning of the Requiem, he creates a little mirror the same way our friend Bach often does. It's kind of a chiasmus where we have this sort of mirrored construction. But at the beginning, we begin with, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And at the end of the piece, we just heard and that one is from Matthew. At the end of the work, we get, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord. So we're still starting with selig, but instead of selig sind die Toten, or selig sind die da Leid tragen, those who mourn, we're actually now singing about, blessed are they who die in the Lord. And we use revelation, and it creates an amazing mirror. But listen how beautiful and lyrical this is. Yea, the Spirit says that they may rest from their labors. I love that, das sie ruhen. Ruhe. And their works, ihre Arbeit. Listen to how peaceful this is. Sometimes we think about Revelation musically as being, let's blow the back doors out. And sometimes it is, and at the end of our talk today, we're going to blow the back doors out. But we keep talking about resting here. We're resting from our labors. this to me is sort of this interesting dichotomy musically that we get with Revelation. And coming at this from a musician standpoint, I find it to be really intriguing. I'm going to play another piece for you. This is a piece that is something this is the Paul Mons, so we're not at the Bach yet. This is a piece written by Paul Mons. It was written in the early 50s, 1950s, I want to say 1953, maybe. There you go. 1953. It was written by his wife Ruth had compiled some texts for him while their son, who was 3 years old at the time, was in the hospital critically ill. And she had compiled a text from Revelation. And the text is, I put it here, where did it go? Hang on. It's actually right behind me. Oh, is it right behind me? Oh, you can see it. Oh, there we go. Peace be to you and grace. There you go. You don't need me to read this. How many of you know this anthem? We sing it here. Okay, if you don't know this, I'm going to play it for you, and I'm just going to play it without interruption. You're going to have to listen to the whole whopping 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Okay, your life will be better for it, trust me. The story that Paul and Ruth Mons told, he sat there at the hospital bed and he sketched it out using the text that his wife had prepared for him to work from. And this is what he came up with. Their son recovered. But at that point, it was not looking good. And they always attributed that recovery to the power of prayer. And in particular, this. So I just want you to listen to this. This is a calm view of Revelation.
We'll see if this works. Is this working? I guess it is. So this is one of my favorite anthems, and I just wanted to add a little bit of color to this. Obviously, this is Ruth and Paul Mons. Probably shortly before both of them passed on in different years, but this was the pictures from 2005, and I think she died about a year later and him about 2 years later. In the Lutheran Church, he's the equivalent of, for those of you who know Anglican music, Jerry Hancock, who was just a luminary of Anglican hymnody improvisation, and Paul Mons was that person in the Lutheran Church. But as a parent, I cannot imagine writing this piece. Ruth put together the text and Paul the music because they thought their son was going to die. The doctors had told them to prepare for that. And so they sat at his bedside, and this is what they produced. As Ernie pointed out, he's now probably in his 60s, the son. He survived. But I just can't imagine that moment. And so when you talk about the power of revelation, I think it comes through here.
Yeah, I agree. The next piece I'm going to play, Larry, this is the O Ewigkeit du Donnerwort. So Larry and I, when we were talking about this, as we often do, we were sort of walking up the street and we were talking, and I said, "Wait a minute, where is that core, that movement that uses revelation in Bach?" And we sort of poked around, and Larry found it and stumbled on it and said it was the cantata O Ewigkeit du Donnerwort, O Eternity, you word of thunder. I love that. But there is a recitative, and you're going to hear, I'm going to play a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you what you're going to hear. Oh. Now. Oh, you can see, okay. So you're going to hear the alto sing, and what the alto just sang was, "But death remains hateful to human nature and wrestles hope almost completely to the ground." Then the bass soloist is going to respond, "Blessed are the dead." Then the alto is going to go on a little further and say, "But alas, how many dangers arise before the soul walking the path of death. Perhaps the raging hell will make death terrifying as it attempts to devour the soul. Perhaps it is already condemned to eternal damnation." The bass responds, "Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord." And each time there is a phrase, the bass soloist adds a little bit more of that text from Revelation. Then we get, "Blessed are the dead who die from henceforth. All right, if I shall be blessed from now on. O hope, reappear to me, that my body may rest without fear." So here again, the words from Revelation are used as a comfort. Just take a listen and listen to the dichotomy and listen to the way the music changes. I'm not going to play all of this because this one's a little bit long, and Larry's got some fun surprises. But death remains completely contrary to human nature, and it wrestles all hope to the ground. Blessed are the dead. How many dangers and trials arise before the soul? This is not a great translation. I don't like Pam Dalal's. It's not as good as Mikhail. I know. Perhaps we are already condemned to damnation. So we have this arioso that the bass sings. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, in the score, and this is common in Bach cantatas, when you hear the alto singing, that's marked as the human soul and actually denoted it as fear. And the bass is Jesus singing. And the other thing you might notice is that when the alto is singing, the music is very much dramatic. It's like what was used in operas. You hear it in the Passion sometimes for the evangelist and
it's very
the
dry.
narration. Yeah, and the harmonies are very dramatic. When Jesus comes in, it's very slow harmony with that kind of walking bass, and so it's very calm, the same way we heard in the Brahms.
And I think this is a great example of how a composer saw this and used those words of comfort and juxtaposed them against, quite frankly, anxiety. And just a little, the end movement that follows this dialogue between the alto and the bass of Jesus, the text is, "It is enough, Lord, if it pleases you, then release me. My Jesus comes, good night, O world. I journey to heaven's house, I go there securely in peace. My great suffering remains behind," and I love this, "it is enough. Es ist genug." All right? So we finally get this realization at the very end of this comfort from Revelation. So these are different ways, I think, of looking at this. But Revelation is, I feel like, is never far from our music desk. I feel like it's always sort of there when we're looking at these pieces.
I would point out, so first of all, you have your little handy set of notes. Good information, sometimes a few run-on sentences. Sorry about that, that's my style. Where you see selected references at the bottom of the second page, I picked things that were available online. If you Google these, you should be able to find them. I made sure that they are all legally able to just be shared. So if you, for some reason, can't find them, just let me know. I have all these PDFs. The first three, and this goes back to Dion's introduction, the first three actually speak to how the texts from Revelation are used to inform musical composition. The last one, also available, it's through Creative Commons, even though it's OUP, actually lifts the texts from Revelation. So the last one is a little bit different in that it's examining the words in Revelation as hymns, right? Because there are so many of those. So the first three are how the words informed music, like we've been talking about. That last reference is really looking at the actual hymns that are embodied or found in the text. I'll also point out that I picked things that I think summarize well. They're not always the most academic. The first one, actually, Don Engebretson is a good scholar. He teaches at Concordia, but it's an unpublished manuscript, but still has a lot of good information. And the McGrath volume is available through, it's the Indiana Consortium of Higher Ed, and again, downloadable. And a good, not terribly deep, and wasn't intended as such, but it's a good survey. So,
What should we play?
well, I was going to say, we will, but I think a good intro to that is actually Messiaen, because we've been talking about the use of Revelation in religious texts. Here's an example of the use of Revelation in a very different set of circumstances.
Yeah. This is the Messiaen Quartet for the End of Time. This should be the dance of the Fury. Yes. No, sorry. This is the Crystal Liturgy. we play the last movement? I do. I was thinking, should we do the Dance of the Furies? Only got 26 seconds. Huh? Do you want to?
So a little context for this. So first of all, you have some very famous musicians, famous at the time, right? So Messiaen was probably less so. On the right-hand side there, holding a cello, you can see the neck of the cello, is Etienne Pasquier, who is probably one of the most famous musicians in France at the time in the classical music scene. Had a quartet that was actually named after him. It was the eponymous Pasquier Quartet. You have Henri Acoca, who's next to the left of Pasquier, who's a clarinetist. You have Messiaen standing, and then you have Jean de Boulere, who played violin and was also very gifted. Acoca and Boulere were not so famous, but here they all were together in this concentration camp, in this Stalag 8A, as they call it. And so, as prisoners of war. And so Messiaen had to work with what he had. So there aren't many pieces written for violin, clarinet, cello, and piano. But in fact,
Yeah, go ahead.
so Messiaen wrote this piece, but it's also reflective of this idea of the end of time. So you can imagine the context, you know, from a European perspective, not quite the beginning, but early on in the Second World War, and sort of a grim circumstances, and I think you hear that in the music, right? And so no vocals at all. For the premiere of this, they played for their fellow prisoners and for the guards, and my understanding is, at least Messiaen wrote about it this way, you know, the violin had like 3 strings. They got some instruments. I think sometimes they were, the legend of it is a little more dire than probably what really happened, but I think they did get some actual instruments. But Messiaen did play this on an old upright piano that was probably horribly out of tune.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, one of the things that when we think about, you know, Larry talking about the violin with 3 strings, one of the things that we think about, or we don't think about, is the way that conflict affects so many things. And musicologists have debated long into the night about the different groupings of instruments that happened in the music world in Europe, starting in the mid-1930s and going through almost the end of the 1940s. And we come up with pieces that are that have very small and very odd combinations, because that was who was available. Those were the people who were there. Those were, in some cases, this is kind of a grim thing, those are the people who had survived. And so composers wrote for who they had. And this is a great example. And it's interesting, I find this fascinating, that let me play a little bit of the dance, because I think I've got that queued up next, right? Do I have the dance?
it was in your playlist. Yeah, it's number 7. as you're listening to this, what you can hear is a single line, but it keeps getting extended, right? It's very improvisational. This is very typical of Messiaen, especially in his later organ works. But I'm actually going to make a connection to Megadeth through that.
You ready?
All right, yeah. So let me go back and can we go? There we are. So,
You ready?
not yet. Let me just give a little tip. But you can pause Messiaen. So here you have, so in Messiaen, with the Quartet for the End of Time, again, you have Messiaen's taking of the book of Revelation, the particular texts he chose, to reflect these dire circumstances. And by dire circumstances, I think it's not just his situation within Stalag 8-A, but the world at the time, right? And so he's reflecting this idea of are these the end of times? And so you have that in the way in which the music is presented. That same kind of dystopian view within Revelation, right? The four horsemen of the apocalypse, the mark of the beast, speaks to a whole subgenre of heavy metal called thrash metal. That was very popular in the late 60s and early 70s, and it really continues through to this day. But it really kind of picked up steam in the 70s. And I would argue that, in fact, that whole genre, especially thrash metal, when you look at the lyrics, so it's people like, it's Metallica, it's Megadeth. Genesis actually started out that way.
Yeah.
So we don't think of Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel that way now, but there you go. In a sense, it's the evolution of the protest songs of the 60s. This is what I would say. In the 70s, pop music, especially when you go back and take a look at Billboard and what's on what hit #1 week over week, you have a lot of ballads. You have the quote unquote me generation, right? It's a lot of love songs. It's a lot about, sort of celebration, party. You get this emergence of disco. But in thrash metal, you have a reaction to what's happening in the world at the time, especially this idea in the Cold War, that we might face nuclear annihilation, right? That's a big theme throughout heavy metal and thrash metal. And Dave Mustaine, who came out of a group called Panic and then was the lead guitarist for Metallica for a couple years, it caused a great rivalry for many years with Kirk Hammett, I think.
Kirk Hammett, yeah. They did not get along.
Yeah, they do now. They're actually good friends. But at any rate, Dave Mustaine then moved to Megadeth. When he was at Panic, he actually was using the book of Revelation for lyrics, especially with a focus on the four horsemen. And when he went to Metallica, he brought that with him. And then when he went to Megadeth, this really sort of became much more nuanced. And notice that he ends with "Blessed are the dead." I added that "they may rest" because that does actually factor in. It doesn't come up in the little bit that we're going to play, but it is actually part of the text. But the same way that I mentioned about Messiaen, where he takes this idea, a small musical idea, and keeps extending it, that's actually in this incredibly virtuosic and stunning guitar playing, right? Like
amazing.
Sometimes I think those of us in the quote unquote Western art music field are dismissive of such things. We're not.
We're not.
But it's an unbelievable musicianship. So here is "Blessed Are the Dead" of Megadeth. This is from 2007. It was a studio album. Oh, not that one. You have to go back.
Sorry. Hang on. I got the wrong one.
But that shows you how they were thinking. Here we go. Yeah, listen to the guitar.
So that guitar tone, man. I like the way that they do 3 verses before they get Huh? Yeah. Right there, that break, that's Metallica. That's that Metallica break right there. We'll be playing this next Sunday in church.
And if you want to go back and take a look at the videos of this, especially the earlier versions where he's doing it in Metallica, it's definitely the headbanger.
Yeah,
You know.
it's
So we should be doing that in the loft anyway. But I think what's important here is that as we look at the ways in which the book of Revelation has inspired music, there's obviously the throne room worship, the victorious lamb, right? But then there's also this fixation on sort of death, pestilence, famine, etc. And not just because, you know, it was cool to do that, but because they were writing in an environment where they were looking around the world and, like Messiaen, wondering, are these the ends of times? So,
go ahead. No.
I was going to say, so to bring this back to the throne room, the victorious lamb, etc. We have, let's see if I can go one more here. All right, I got to walk back
Gotta walk
here.
back. You know, the one thing I would add while Larry is walking to get connection to the PowerPoint is, you know, we tend to think of music as being very siloed. And in some ways, it really is. We have church music, and within church music, we got a lot of little silos. We have music that we do in the Lutheran Church, and we have Anglican music, and we have Roman Catholic music, and we have things that are part of those traditions, and those are very important. But what we sometimes miss is the fact that musicians tend to be, first of all, we all tend to be just a little bit out there, a little bit skewed. I'm saying this about myself. And I mentioned this to Larry. I just got Rick Rubin, the great legendary record producer. I just got his book. It came last night and I opened it up this morning while I was having coffee, getting ready to come in. And it just opened to a random page, and there was a quote. And the quote was, "Give yourself a space to create the thing that you are terrified to express." And I've been chewing on that all morning. And I think the application of this is musicians get influences from all sorts of places that are a little bit out there.
And I'm going to add one unrelated corollary to what we just
genius?
talked about in terms of Megadeth. So Dave Mustaine, who is, again, the lead guitarist for a few years with Metallica, then went on and is with Megadeth. Here's how things change. He's probably my age, and he lives in Tennessee, and he's now a vintner, and he produces fine wines called the House of Mustaine. Slightly different from his Megadeth focus. So when we talk about hymnody, so now bringing this back, so we talked about Western art music, sort of choral traditions. We looked at Messiaen, we looked at popular music. Now looking at our own hymnal in particular. So what's displayed on the screen here is one of the earliest versions of this, right? It's "Worthy is the Lamb," and this is the introit, the Gregorian chant introit for the Feast of Christ the King. And I think I did an improv postlude on this, on Feast of Christ the King. And this is where organists, sometimes we have to do odd things to amuse ourselves. But after the gospel every week, I usually improvise on the sequence hymn. But last week, when this was the text in Revelation, I took this chant. And so, not that you would have noticed this, but that was the basis for the improvisation as the gospel went back up the aisle. So things like that are keep
Sure.
it interesting. So why don't we play that?
Yeah.
This is one of the first hymns that would actually pick up
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I got a little antsy.
And if you
They have
listen
a
carefully, you
pedal.
hear the drone.
They have a pedal point.
Yeah. And many of you can tell from the music that I play that I have a great affinity for the music of Maurice Duruflé, who loved this kind of chant and that style of improvising over, the sort of drone in the bass. But these themes, Second Coming of Christ, New Jerusalem, New Creation, the victorious Lamb, the throne of God, are just all throughout the hymnal. And as you can tell from the past, I just pulled since April 20th, what we've been singing, and these are direct quotes, right? First of all, as our song of praise, we're doing This is the Feast of Victory, right? Which is worthy is the Lamb who was slain. I hope you do too, the song Come Away to the Skies, the tune Middlebury, which we did last week as the sequence hymn. But again, this idea of we shall gather at the river, the being washed in the blood of the Lamb. And I will say, one of my favorites, and I have it listed here, but not up here, Love Divine, All Loves Excelling. So I don't think there is a better pairing of music, and it's in our hymnal. It's not always used with the Welsh tune Hyfrydol, but when you take the Welsh tune Hyfrydol and you use that finish then, the last verse, finish then thy new creation, pure and spotless, make us be, and then you have changed from glory into glory, till in heaven we take our place, till we cast our crowns before thee, lost in wonder, love, and praise. Just a fabulous text to the tune of Hyfrydol. And when I think of the hymnody that reflects the book of Revelation, I don't think there's anything better than that. But we use a lot of it.
That's one of my favorites.
So maybe we should just open it up for discussion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Anybody have any questions? Anything you want to ask? You'll all be quizzed on the Megadeth, I expect. We'll see you down there banging your head.
Microphones, because it's being recorded.
Oh, man.
Ernie, would you mind repeating the name of the book that arrived last night?
Oh, it's I can't even tell you what the title is. It's Rick Rubin, Rickrubin. And Rick Rubin, I don't think I've ever seen him wearing long pants. And actually, or as we described during COVID when we stopped getting dressed up, dress pants like these are hard pants. The Creative Act, and it's got it has a circle on the cover, which is a record. It's the record with the hole for the spindle. But Rick Rubin is one of these, and he's got this gigantic beard and long hair. He looks like he just came off the beach. And he's really a fascinating guy. And I saw this book, and I've wanted to read it for a while, and I literally just got it today. So, the Creative Act, yeah. So yeah, definitely worth getting. Oh.
Larry and Ernie, just a word of thanks. But as I was listening to your presentation and just reflecting on a lot of texts, it does make me mindful about the gift of chaos. Because I think in the midst of the gift of chaos, a huge existential sort of yearning and search comes out. And whether it's the book of Revelation or the Quartet for the End Times or any of the music or Megadeth or Metallica or any of the music that's reflected here, chaos actually is inspiration to express what's going on deeply with the human condition.
100%.
And in that way, I think all the pieces that you presented, this is more of a comment, is a reflection of that. Now, the question, based on what we are experiencing today in this chaos, what type of appropriate hymnody do you think matches the temper of the times?
Ooh, Larry. This way. Now, so I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna paint myself into a really tight little standing spot in the corner. That's a really great question, and I will tell you, it's the type of thing that Larry and I frequently talk about. Like, we'll look at a piece of music, and it'll be, what about this? What about that? And we go back and forth about it quite a bit. When, you know, I think in terms of picking hymns, anthems, other music, I think right now we're at a point, and I struggle with this programming in a lot of different places, a lot of different ways. You need to program things that are not going to just make people complacent. Oh, isn't that nice? We're doing another Mozart Requiem. Oh, you know, poor devil, he died after writing measure 8 of the Lacrimosa, and look what Zusmeyer did to finish it up. Wow. I think we need to program music, whether it's a hymn, an anthem, and it's what you all do with sermons, that maybe prick the skin a bit to make us think. Because if we all get in that comfort zone where it's nice and warm and fuzzy, we like being in there. But we don't, you know, it's the risk that leads us to the truth, I think.
Yeah, I would just add that I think we, as a practice, we don't avoid contemporary music by any means, but we avoid the type of music that is a little bit, I'll call it fatuous, and sorry for sounding pejorative, but I mean it that way, where you have texts that are all about just sort of, you know, my relationship with Jesus, and I'm feeling, and that's not a bad thing, but we tend to avoid or not program pieces, even at 5:30, right, that are these sort of, you know, flaccid music and text. We want texts that are challenging, even where we're seeking consolation. The idea of blessed are the dead, right? Think of that Bach text, this idea of the drama between, you know, the fear and then this consolation and promise, right? So I think that's part of it. You reminded me of something, though, I wanted to share. It's a little bit off the answer, but I have to share this. You all, or many of you, will know my daughter who plays the cello, who I think is super smart, but she has a really good way with words, too. She just smokes me in terms of dad jokes. Like, I cannot win. If I say the classic dad joke, she always one-ups me. So she was asking about this talk, and I was explaining. I said, yeah, you could think of the book of Revelation as, they were big Narnia fans, and I said, remember the last battle? I said, so think of the last battle, but maybe if you were like, you know, somebody doing like psychedelic drugs. And she looked at me and she said, oh, C.S. Lewis meets Lewis Carroll. And I thought, that's actually really good. So,
I have to
and she didn't miss a beat, I gotta say. So I'm very proud of her.
I have to tell you, Larry told me that just before the opening hymn today. And I was sitting in my little chair behind the positif, the Rook positif, and I was like convulsed with giggles when he said that. So,
if I could recommend a piece of music that combines both this idea of blessed are the dead, but also some of the more globally eschatological themes, the American ship note hymn Idumea, which Am I Born to Die? But there's a final verse that also includes lines like, and see the flaming skies and everything like that, and the resurrection of the dead. It's very momentous. And a very strange musician named Dave Tibet did an entire album based on variations of it.
at the end of this, can you give me
We'll
that?
do.
I'm going to take a listen.
It's a fairly famous ship note song. You might remember a couple bits of it.
Okay.
But yeah. All right.
That's great. You know, it's funny, I was talking with Larry today about some music for next Sunday, and I don't know that this is going to make the cut, but it's all planned out. It's all planned out. And usually when we're talking about these things, and we've got the acoustic ensemble coming next Sunday, and I was listening, many of you know that in addition to my lofty and erudite, liturgical music love, I'm also like a major rock and R&B fan. And I was listening to some music the other day, and the Impressions. Now, if you don't know the Impressions, you may know the name Curtis Mayfield, who came out of the Impressions to do his own solo act, but they sing a song called People Get Ready. And I'm not going to say anything more about what may or may not happen next week, but I literally sent a text to my son saying, what do you think about People Get Ready? Easy changes, 1, 1, minor 6, 4, 1. That's all I said. And it could very well be that next Sunday evening we walk in and I go 1, 6, 4, 1, and we play it. Or I like 6 this way for the minor 6. But that's sort of let's get in. We didn't practice. Here we go. But I started looking at that. That was a very important hymn in the civil rights world. Okay. But it is also talking about the train that's going from taking you to Jordan and going coast to coast, and you don't need a ticket. You just get on board and you give thanks to the Lord for what you have. There's this, it kind of sounds like maybe it's a church gospel-y tune, and then you look at the words and you're like, ooh, wait a minute, whose bubble are they poking right now? And these were sort of these songs that had this double entendre, and it's music exists on so many different planes. And the one thing I want to say, I'm sort of going a little long on this, talking about the imagery of the fire in the sky that you mentioned. Composers don't write music about mundane things. Very few poets write music about mundane things. They don't write a song or a set of lyrics that says, well, I woke up today and the coffee maker didn't turn on, so I got my coffee. It was cold. I had to, get out of the door a little late. My dog peed on the rug. Yeah, Suzanne. Oh, well, you know what? You're right, Suzanne. Yes, definitely. I got out. My car wouldn't start. My life sucks. Nah. They don't write songs like that because nobody cares. Musicians, creatives are trying to find something that will cause you to think when you hear it. I haven't listened to Ewigkeit du Donnerwort in like forever. I am now kind of obsessed with this, and Larry the other day said, I was listening to Haydn's E-flat major sonatas. Was it the last one? The very last one? And we started talking about the second movement. I shared it with a friend of mine. There is a sublime moment that's kind of blowing my mind. There's something, when we hear something that makes us think and doesn't just feed it to us, magic happens. That's where the magic is. And I think that's why Revelation has been such an influence for so many artists and creatives, because it makes us think. You can't make this stuff up. Really, well, somebody did, but not me.
Hi,
Anybody else?
Ernie. A question, a brief comment, and then a question. So, as a common man who's been in the pews for 50 years plus, and I come to listen to the message, and over 50 years, I've been going worst to best, I guess. I've been exposed to people reading the lessons in a monotone, to someone reading a lesson with intonation and spirit, and it resonates more with me. Last week, I learned from Tom May that there are great windows, like the East Window in York Minster, that have the Book of Revelations on the whole side of a cathedral. And that's a visual impact of the message of the Book of Revelation. But what resonates to me in the message is hymnody, a psalm, Psalm 123 today resonated with me, a fantastic, beautiful arrangement. And it meant more to me. Those words meant more to me put to music. I listened to the Messiah, the excerpts from the Messiah. I had never put them into the reference, into the frame that you put them in today.
Revelation.
And it meant more to me. So that's my comment on how important music is. But my question is, as artists, as musicians, as composers, and as people who play and deliver the music, how should I prepare? Like you played a quartet today. Now, if I'm sitting and listening to the quartet, the message of Revelation does not resonate with me.
Right.
So as a musician, when you compose something like that, or when you play something like that, when Larry plays at the organ at the end, the postlude, what is the best way for me to get the true meaning that you're trying to do, that you're trying to present as a composer?
Do you want to go or you want me to go? You're killing me, Smalls. So here's what I think. We like things to be, we like instant gratification. You know, we want to read a book and we want to know what all of the little subtexts are. We want to know what all the little details are in that book. We want every little Easter egg that may or may not be there. And when we finish that book, we're going to go on to the next book, and we want to do the same thing. People tend not to read books over and over and over. Some people do. There are some books that I read over and over and over, and I'm hoping to find something else next time around. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. The beauty of music is you can hear a piece of music and you can hear it 20 times, 30 times, and all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? And actually I'm looking at this tattered Brahms Requiem score. I conducted my first Brahms Requiem in 1989 with this score. And what's even more amazing about that is in 1989, I was only 6 years old. So that should tell you. This score, I have 2 brand new scores to the Brahms Requiem on my bookcase, and I cannot bear to part with this one. And as a matter of fact, I actually had the middle signature of pages came out in a rehearsal, and I still can't bear. But this score lives on the side of my desk, and it comes out periodically along with a number of other, and I mentioned this at a thing at the studio one time. I think it might have been the one you were there for, where I said, there are a number of pieces of music that I have on my desk that kind of live there rent-free all the time, whether I'm going to do them or not. I have no intention to do the Brahms anytime soon. I did one, a year and a half ago? But it lives on my desk because I never know when I might want to, it's like an old friend, when I might want to open it up. And that's where those truths become revealed. It's by not one glancing blow. You get this thing now. It's not one glancing blow, but it's continued connection. And I think that's an important part of it. It's that continued connection with the music. So you know what you need to do when you want to come in and connect with what we're doing musically? You just need to walk in the door and be there. Just let it come in. Let it come in. And one Sunday you'll sing the same hymn you've sung for 60 years, and you'll go, oh my gosh, I never noticed that before. Like all of a sudden you may someday go, Wonder, Love, and Praise. Oh my gosh, that's the title of the hymnal supplement that sits in the pews. Now I know why they use that. Somebody thought Wonder, Love, and Praise was something that was so important they named a hymnal supplement out of it. Little things. So I think you're coming at it exactly the right way. Don't change a thing.
We talk so much about, how chaos and struggle and strife can bring out some tremendous expressions of music. I want to thank Ernie and Larry for this amazing and wonderful presentation. that they brought for us. I hope with these presentations, you begin to understand just how much depth there is in the book of Revelation and how much there is available to us on so many different levels, in so many different ways and interpretations, how this book speaks across the ages to all sorts of different people in different settings, in different places, and in different types of music, be it classical, be it Megadeth, be it, whatever, how this book is really, really a true treasure of our faith. We continue the journey next week with Dr. Jennifer McNeil. She is going to be talking about females imagery in Revelation and how that is interpreted, how that is presented. So it's just one more way of looking at this text and how, again, it is part of our faith and part of our understanding of life and times. I do have for everyone, if you would like, this is some pages on the synagogue of Satan, which was mentioned in chapter 2, which speaks about how they were interpreting that particular phrase, a phrase that can really send you off in an era of anti-Semitism if you don't watch out and know what the context is about that. So I thought that was important enough to photocopy some information about that. So that's available for you if you'd like to read a little bit more about what that phrase means and how to take that in proper context. I'm going to close out here with a prayer with some of the closing words from the book of Revelation. The Spirit and the bride say, "Come." And let the one who hears say, "Come." Let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes to take the free gift of the water of life. He who testifies to these things says, "Yes, I am coming soon." Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. The grace of our Lord Jesus be with God's people. Amen.